Thank you very much. Great to be here this morning at this exciting project and initiative, both in Britain and internationally. And I've just come back from Greece, and I was minded there to be thinking at the Acropolis and of the words demos kratia, and at the same time, the terrible, awful, ghastly thing that's happened to Anne Widdecombe. And to think about her belief in the public, that the public is serious, that they can cope with ideas, that we can be robust. And what's so exceptional about Britain and America has been freedom of conscience and speech. And even if one disagrees vehemently with one another's ideas and citizens, it's our duty and responsibility to uphold that. So I really, in the last few days, the way that it's being presented in some of the press, I think reflects a contempt for the public that we've seen for quite a long time. So I wanted to start today with a recognition of Anne Widdecombe and her bravery and courage and commitment, because together we ask everyone to be brave and to step up and become a leader. So I want to thank you for being here today, and I want to talk to you a bit about Together and the background to it. In many ways, we're often told to be quiet and sit down, to comply, hand over information privacy, not have free speech, have our livelihoods not under our own control and our freedoms. So I want to thank everyone for being here, because that's taking a stand. But Together, we encourage people across the country to take a stand every single day, locally, regionally, and nationally. And because people do that, we have a chance, and we've actually changed the temperature in Britain. We've managed to change a range of different things, from getting rid of the Department of Transport's Liverpool Streets financing for low traffic neighbourhoods, to having a U-turn with farmers when we set up Farmers Take Action, and an initiative for 12 months to transform with thousands of farmers the government's position on that and get the public involved. And everything we do, because policy is very important, but everything that we do at Together is about having the public engaged and active, putting pressure on local councillors, MPs, institutions, because we believe in the end, the only way to keep everyone honest is to have a strong public, the demos kratia. Boris Johnson could quote Pericles and Cicero, and he'd say, you know, if I ever had an ID card, I'd eat it. But there he was on Freedom Day, announcing to everyone that we're going to have Freedom Day and vaccine passports. And so the thing is, it's great if people say things, but what we want to do is hold everyone accountable. And that's what we aim to do at Together, to make sure that we have a robust public that are taken seriously with free speech. And the free speech is the cornerstone of our politics, because without free speech, we have no freedom. And we campaign on a number of different areas, which many of you may well have been involved with and would have seen. But I think the key thing is that we're not prepared to allow our future to be dictated by global bureaucrats and digital overlords, and that we're going to build a future with our own hands, with our voices and our unbreakable will. So the Together Association, one of our key campaigns is No to Digital ID. We say no to the slow motion strangulation of our farmers and our food security as well. We say no to debanking and one login, 8 million directors being forced into one login. We did a big campaign against debanking. Toby Young spoke earlier. We worked with Free Speech Union, brilliant organisation, and many others to do that, with hundreds of thousands of our supporters and members. But more broadly, we want to stop the creeping authoritarianism that wants to turn every British citizen into a node on a centralised control grid, a kind of digital surveillance state. We're the descendants in Britain and in America, of course, of people who tamed this island, who built cathedrals and railways and infrastructure, who crossed oceans and stood alone against tyranny. We're the heirs of William Tyndale, who defied kings and others to put the Bible into the hands of common people, conscience, and paid with his life so that truth could be out there. here I stand, I can do no other. Like Anne Widdecombe, you must be able to have free speech. Martin Luther, here I stand, I can do no other. We stand on the shoulders of these incredible champions and try and encourage the public to take a same position, to have courage, to stand up, to speak. We're not going to surrender our birthright for false promise of convenience and safety when we live in a world where censorship, surveillance, limits, debanking, controls are being pushed all the time. If we look around us, every week farmers are being squeezed, hospitality is being shut down, we've got a crisis in the economy, and all the time we're being told by the media and our new elite, be quiet, don't ask questions, and by the way, if you do ask questions and if you're too critical, you might actually go to prison if you post something about it. And so our goal is to make sure all MPs, all councillors, all leaders in Britain hear from us, locally, regionally and nationally. We get people involved to do letter writing, emails, go to their surgery, calls to action, protests, events, and to make so much noise with our 360-degree campaign with press and lobbying that we can actually change things in Britain. And I think that's really important for the next 3 days as we talk about the different issues we're facing. The public has to be front and centre. The public has to be involved and engaged. It's terrible that we only have 50% generally of people who vote. We've got people who are now so cynical and distrustful, not just of politicians, but of institutions and one another sometimes, that the belief that we can change and curate our world is being diminished. And we have a really big challenge, and that's to bring our fellow neighbours and work associates and colleagues to get involved in that process and to say we can curate the kind of country we want to live in. We can shape that. I mean, food security is not just an abstract policy issue. It's whether our children and grandchildren can actually have food grown on our lands in the same way that we've seen what's happened with energy and the net zero mania, making us poorer and weaker and at a very disproportionate position internationally. So when farmers fail, we all fail. But our goal that we work with farmers and we got the public involved, like we do with hospitality and across the board, with care workers, frontline NHS staff, with our campaigns that we took to Downing Street and around the country, we consistently do that. And I want to invite everyone that's here today to be involved with Together and to share that message, but also the spirit that we can actually shape things in Britain. So it can be locally and it can be nationally, but that spirit of what we're about, that spirit, that sense of us being curators and artists who shape the world with the great principles, not just of demos gratia, people power, but also of our provenance and our heritage from the Renaissance to the Reformation and the Enlightenment and beyond. Core values that are being attacked and undermined that we need to resuscitate and revitalise across the board in different areas. Now, we've seen all sorts of things, banks closing accounts, as I said, debanking. But what we're seeing now is a concerted effort to create a digital surveillance state with biometrics, everything from one login with 8 million directors being forced with no consultation. It's never been in any manifesto. And alongside that, a social media ban, which by de facto means, even though it's being outsourced to big tech, a bit like the Online Safety Act, which was meant to be about protecting children, ended up not doing that and becoming a census charter. And now we have a same prospect with that. And not only that, the only real credible way that people will be able to identify themselves will be, of course, with digital ID. And so people will be forced de facto into a digital ID environment. And we're saying to people that even if the majority of the British people wanted to do that, even if they think that, well, that might be a bit conspiratorial, the idea you're creating a social credit system or a deep surveillance state, and we know there's loads of data breaches, but even if everyone really wanted to do that, we need to have proper scrutiny and debate and discussion. We need to be able to thrash these issues out and debate them and discuss them, and not just shut it down and censor it. Not just 12,000 people that every year for the last few years have been arrested for non-crime hate incidents and posting, but across the board, when we're questioning and challenging, the British public is being smeared, gaslit, and our goal at Together is consistently to put a fresh voice and make sure that our voices are heard. So we reject that future, and we're fighting across the country to make that change. And we've done all sorts of things like making sure banks keep open with the Bank of England and access to cash and the FCA. And not just because also in the consideration of digital arena, it's not just that 3.5 million people are older, but the idea of privacy, the idea that we have autonomy and should not be continually in a position where a state is supervising and intervening. And we've seen all sorts of situations where that can go very wrong, like during lockdowns, where we had the Rapid Response Unit and the Counter Disinformation Unit spying on citizens and journalists and shadow banning people and censoring them and shutting them down. So I'd like to invite everyone today, in the spirit of William Tyndale, in the spirit of Martin Luther, and Here I Stand and Can Do No Other, in the spirit of Anne Widdecombe, to actually become a champion in Britain and, of course, in America, to work together, to say that we've got these common foundational principles, and we may disagree about different issues. I didn't agree with Anne on everything, but the point is that we have some core issues that we must fight together with to uphold and defend, because if they get even watered down or worse and attacked, we won't have a free society. So the spirit in which I'm speaking to you today in the next 3 days of this conference is to say, let's go out there, let's win over the British public to the idea of working together. Let's make sure we hold everyone accountable, whoever says whatever they're going to do, and that we've always got a strong public that have got strong muscles that can make sure we curate the future, and that we can also hold everyone's feet to the fire and make sure our voices are heard to shape the kind of Britain we want to see in the economy, in education, in health, in future innovation, but with democracy, privacy, sovereignty and autonomy together. Thank you very much.